Hello, scholars. Are you dreaming of study in USA, either any of the United States of America? Today we have a very special Mr. Naim. He is currently from Ohio State University, USA. And Mr. Naim, thank you so much for joining our session and guiding the youth how they can proceed their careers as a research scholar, as a PhD scholar, as a master student in the USA, United States of America. First of all, I would like, please, can you give us a brief introduction about yourself? Where are you? About what is your university? What are you currently working on? What domains, fields, and how about your background? Where are you from, and when you came to USA? Please.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining to this live. I'm Mohammad Naim Hasan Munna. Originally, I'm from Bangladesh. More specifically, my city name is Barishal. It's a coastal region of my country. Currently, I am pursuing my PhD in soil science in the School of Environment and Natural Resources at the Ohio State University. I'm working with Dr. Ratan Lal. Under his supervision, I'm conducting a research. It's a long-term experiment to evaluate the effect of organic amendments and cover cropping on soil physical quality. So, more specifically, I am focused on soil physics, although I had some experience in soil chemistry as well. Back in 2014, I started my bachelor in University of Borishal, Bangladesh, in soil and environmental sciences. I also completed my master's from the same department, and I conducted my master's thesis on evaluating the effect of acid modified biochars on saline soil. So I have a good connection to make the soil in a better way so that we can really consider that soil as a sustainable soil that can secure in a way so that we can also focus on food security and climate resilience. Currently, I'm in my apartment. It's in Columbus. It's within my campus as well. My lab is around 10 minutes walking distance from here. Yeah, I'm really happy to join that live. So let's get started to discuss more.
Thank you so much, and we really congratulate you for your achievements and what you are doing. Great work to preserve this world with the soil and each and everything. Please, first of all, I would like to say, can you introduce our audience, with what about your project, how you win this scholarship, this fellowship, and what is the name? And this is generally very common. And also, can you introduce just a brief introduction of other opportunities currently in this state, either whole of the USA?
Well, it's a very good question to start with. If we consider the whole ecosystem of scholarship or fellowship in the United States, it's more versatile. For example, you can come here as a research assistant, or you can also come here as a teaching assistant. Or if you really don't like to be a TA or RA, then you can also consider to start your application with fellowship. If you have the fellowship opportunity, you don't have that much responsibility as a TA, like teaching assistant, or RA, like research assistant. So these are the main gateway you can consider to start your higher study in the United States. More specifically, based on my personal preference, I considered associateship, that is another term can be used as research assistantship. In the Ohio State University, it's called research associateship. So I applied centrally at the Ohio State University, and I got that opportunity to start my research with my professor, Dr. Ratanlal, as a graduate research associate. So my responsibility is mainly focusing on conducting my thesis as well as to do some kind of research work or help for my professor, Dr. Lal, in the lab. So it's all about conducting research. Besides, I also had some kind of responsibility to do coursework as well. As you know, it's the whole responsibility as a student, like PhD student. So these are the main pathway. There are some other scopes. Hopefully, we'll discuss further later on.
Okay, thank you so much. Uh, First, to start this process, getting an admission or a fellowship or a funding opportunity, the most important thing I personally consider is to find a right pathway and then find what are the requirements and how we can fulfill. So I would ask you how we can start, how we know what are the general requirements, like we talk about the documents, the language barriers, and anything else, like as you mentioned, you have like already working on a project with your supervisor. Is it considered as a plus point to be already engaged in something project in your country? Either is it okay if you are not currently engaging in any of the project and just want to apply for solely for a new project in USA space?
Mhm.
So before that, I would be happy if you go through the documents requirements. What are the
Yes.
generally documents requirements, especially if we talk about for masters and for the PhD, please?
Yeah, sounds great. So when we are planning to purchase higher study abroad, more specifically, we always think about different documentation, what kind of documents we may need. However, if you are a bachelor student or master's in any university in any country, for example, it could be Bangladesh, it could be India, it could be Pakistan, or any other countries. So the first and foremost requirement is having a degree. So it could be bachelor if you are targeting masters, or it could also be a master's degree you have completed and you are targeting for PhD. And then some other documentations that are crucial for your application process. It could be SOP, that means statement of purpose. You have to write a story, you have to connect your whole background, present situation, and the future goal. All should be connected to each other. That is what we are explaining all of those things in our SOP. And the most important thing that I feel we may have as a barrier, that is English proficiency. Or if you're considering Japan, for example, it could be Japanese language. Or if you are considering Germany, it could be some other language or Spanish. So it's one of the most important matter that you should really consider before considering which country you are interested in. For example, I started to think about Japan after completing my bachelor. I considered mixed scholarship. I also tried to learn Japanese as well, but it wasn't a very good experience with me because it's really hard to learn Japanese at that point for me, at least. That's why I was also really worried about whether I could really purchase that one or not. And then I considered some other countries, English speaking countries. So the first target was USA and then Australia as well. So in that way, if you have some kind of English proficiency skill, then you can consider English speaking country, as I considered for my case. So it could be IELTS or TOEFL or GRE or Duolingo. More specifically, my more spatial suggestion would be, if you are really have a good expertise in typing, your typing speed is good, then you can also consider Duolingo English test, as you can give it at home, and it may charge around $50. So it's very affordable as well. So it's really reasonable to consider English proficiency test earlier because it may take some time. Sometimes you have to go through the trial and error as well. So the last thing I would like to mention as the documentation purpose, it would be the recommendation letters. Sometimes we really don't care about that, and we think we have some professors, we are connected to each other in a good manner, but at the end of the day, if you really don't approach to your targeted professors to get your recommendation letters, in a professional way, then it could be a very bad situation for you when you really need that. So you have to prepare for that very early. Let me tell you my experience. I try to connect with more specific professors based on my targeted research area or my research interest. That's why I also try to involve with them to do some kind of research assistantship work or voluntary work, so that they know what's my interest is, and they can also write a recommendation letter for me when I need that. So those are the whole thing you should consider before starting the application process. And the last but not the least is having some more crucial certifications. It could be, if you are married, you should have the marriage certificate, more specifically English translated version, or if you're interested in Japanese language, then you should also have that translated version as well. Sometimes we really don't care about that, but ultimately it's really crucial. Some other things, it could be, if you have the country ID card, it should also be in English language. So those are the main things that you should consider to prepare your documentation for higher study abroad, more specifically in the USA. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naim. Uh, Documents should be divided, I think, in three different forms. One is education documents, other is your personal documents like your passport and your national ID card or something, certificates, and your marriage certificates, your FRC family card, something. And the third most important category is scholarship specific documents. I
Yes.
can highlight from your conversation you mentioned about letter of recommendation and letter of motivation, either SOP, statement of purpose. I would be very happy to hear from you how we can prepare a good letter of motivation, either SOP, for considering USA.
Yeah. Well, it's really a very good point to start with writing a SOP. For example, if you are try to connect your previous experience or your background and your present position and then your future goal or the future endeavor, that's the whole thing should be in your SOP. So why you are interested to purchase a degree in a specific program, so you have to connect all of those things in your SOP. My personal preference is starting with my personal background and my personal interest that was grown when I started my bachelor, for example. As I started to study soil science, I tried to connect the whole agricultural perspective of Bangladesh. That's why it's really connected, and the flow of the SOP will go from, yes, it's our country is agricultural focused, and I'm reading soil science. I'm studying soil science. I really want to do the betterment of soil so that we can do more well perspective in soil science. And then the future side could be, you were interested to purchase this subject in that program so that you can learn more and you can implement that knowledge in that specific field. So it's my personal experience how I try to connect in my SOP. You can also make your story. It would be like a story, not a very separated uh, part of different part of your life. It would be a whole connected story in the SOP. That's what I think.
Thank you so much once again. I would recommend to my audience, please visit the public social media accounts of Mr. Naim. I have mentioned in the description of this video. He upload very informative videos about USA scholarship guidance and scholarship updates. I personally visit his Facebook, either other platform, to get some information from time to time. I would like to go through the comment section if we have any question before we proceed this conversation. So first comment I have got interview email from Professor of USA for such masters. How to get prepared for that? Okay, so I think we should talk about this in a very general way. What is the in if we get an interview call from US professor, either a faculty, how we could prepare, what are the most important points to get prepared, and what are the things we should avoid not to say, either not to discuss with the professor in this interview, please.
Well, first of all, if you have an interview call, then congratulations to the brother who has got that call. To prepare for an interview, first of all, you have to understand what you should do and what you shouldn't. That's why, for example, if you have an interview today, you have to be really well prepared about the professor's work, for example. What are the recent publications they had, or some kind of lab experience you can also get from online or by searching on Google. Even you should also prepare about yourself as well. They could ask about your research. I can remember till now when I had several interviews from professors, especially Japanese professors, when I tried for mixed scholarship. Those interviews were based on more specifically on my research, what I was doing at that time in my master's in Bangladesh. So you have to very well known about your research, or more specifically the significance of your research, the objectives, why you are doing that, what would be the result of that, and how you are going to connect that with your future goal. Those are the things they would like to know from you. And then more specifically, you have to prepare uh, you have to prepare some questions. Sometimes professor would give you some floor, they would ask you some questions to them, then you have to prepare for that. For example, recently I had an interview for some other positions, and I was well known that I may get some opportunity to ask questions. Then I was really well prepared for that. So that's why I did study and went through the whole lab study or the professor's work. That's why it was really easy to me to prepare a question to them that is really meaningful. Another important matter that you should really consider, having a good dress up. Sometimes the appearance matters more than what you are planning to talk. So it's really important maintaining the time and having a well background, at least like no distraction in your background. It's really matters sometimes. So that's all I think, and you can also do some study online to prepare yourself for your subject matters or the whole interview process.
Okay, thank you so much. Then there is another important point about document. You recently talked about letter of recommendations. I want to know personally for myself and also for my audience how we can ask our recommendee to craft my recommendation letter, because usually, as I know, in Pakistan, in my country, and the professor, the faculty members, they usually have one simple draft and they just send us the same letter. You can submit to any of the position, either any of the university, wherever we are applying. What are your recommendation? How would ask to our professors, our supervisor in the previous university, like what are the main point he should mention in our recommendation letter, please?
Well, for my experience, let me share the most recent experience. For
Sure.
applying the green card in the USA, I was planning to get recommendation letters from different continents. As I had a good connection from many professors from different countries, I started to send email to them, and it was more straightforward. I tried to remind him how we were connected, or where we met, or where we had a conversation. Then I tried to show, yes, I'm in that position and I need a recommendation letter. If you, it could be like, if you are busy, I'd be able to give you a draft. So it's a straightforward process, and professors are really busy, so they don't have that much time to do more study on you instead of doing their own research. That's why if you offer them to provide them with a draft version of the recommendation letter, it would be really easy just to copy and paste that letter on their specific letterhead, and it's really convenient for them as well. The more specific experience I had with a professor from Japan. He is an associate professor of Nodai University, Tokyo University of Agriculture. We had a very good connection. Well, let me tell you the story first. I started searching for different professors from Japan during my next try. Then at the time, I found Nodai, the Tokyo University of Agriculture, was very fascinating to me, and I tried to reach out to them. And even my master supervisor from University of Borishal had a good connection with a professor from Nodai University. That's why it was really a good way for me. However, as I wasn't uh, successful for the next scholarship, although the professor were really interested to have me in their lab. Ultimately, I'm in the USA, and after moving to the USA, I found one professor from Nodai University who is here as a research associate, or it was uh, like research scholar position. So he was here for about 1 year. We had great conversations. We were in the same meeting or same field visit, same seminars. We were participated. Even he presented. I was an audience, and I presented. He was an audience. So in that way, we had a great connection. As I was planning to get a recommendation letter from Japan for my green card processing, I approached to him, and he was really interested to give me the letter. And in that email, I more specifically mentioned how we had a very good experience with him in the USA. So in that way, you have to connect with that if you are really interested to get a recommendation letter internationally, or if you are getting your recommendation letter from your university professors, it's a different scenario. First of all, you have to make a very strong connection with him. It's not easy. You have to invest your time. It could be you can do some volunteer work. You can also support him to do some research work as well. Sometimes they can get funding from funding agencies in your country. They may need research assistant, or sometimes they are looking for voluntary service as well. If you help them, they would also be interested to give you some kind of recommendation letter. It's a give and take situation. So building a good connection, a relationship with a professor is a very important aspect that you should consider if you are planning to get a recommendation letter from him, for example, right after 2 years. So it's a long term process. You have to really think about it and have to work on it as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's most of the things we already discussed about the documentation and how we should go through the documentation process. I would like to mention one thing. Usually, when we are applying for a scholarship to another country, we require some verification from our regional, either our national boards or our national embassy, something like that. So please, I think it is different for each and every country how this process goes. So it's not good if we talk about, might be our audience will get confused. What is this? This is something like, you can mention about Pakistan. Please, if you are applying, go through your degree and transcript verification from HEC Higher Education Board and your MOFA, that is Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and then you can also check if it is required from you, if you required a verification from the embassy of your applying country recently. Okay, Mr. Name. Next, I would like to proceed our conversation. Once we apply, we prepare with documents. We already know what are the how to find the positions and what are the major scholarship opportunities. The next thing I want to know, being as a student, what are the timelines of applying for a scholarship or other opportunities? Is there, like you recently mentioned about Japan, the Max scholarship? They have a fixed timeline, like we can apply during specific times, specific months, and then there is a timeline for different for each and every university. What about USA? It is like they open the application once a year. Either it is like we can apply any day of the year. Okay, please.
Well, as I mentioned, the USA higher education pathway is really different than some other countries. For example, Japan for MEX scholarship or Europe for Erasmus Mundus. Let me tell you why. As we are trying to gate a position era as a TA or RA, then it's really different. We are not considering scholarships. Scholarships means you have to study yourself and you will get funding, and that would bear your living expense, for example. But TA-ship and RA-ship, it's like you are here. For example, I'm here to or to provide some kind of service, and they will give a payment or salary. It's like a salary, not a scholarship. So I can live my life here. Living expense is very important here, right? So when you are considering the United States of America, the main pathway is having TA-ship or RA-ship or fellowship. Fellowship is like a scholarship. You don't any like barrier to do more specific task in each semester. But if you're considering TA and RA, you must have some responsibilities. More specifically for teaching assistantship, that is really harder than the research assistantship. For example, if you are a TA, then you have to work with your assigned professor. You have to help him to do so many works, from taking attendance to preparing exam questions or grading those questions and all of these things. Or even you can also have to organize the Zoom session as well as a TA. But for RA-ship, it's more specifically you have to do the lab work, whether it could be your thesis or a part of your professor's research. However, there are some other scholarship opportunities in the US as well. It could be Fulbright foreign student program. You can also consider this one. You can search on Google with that term, Fulbright scholarship in the USA. You would get more information about that. For the timeline, it really depends what program you are interested in. If you are interested in that kind of program, like as I mentioned, Fulbright foreign student program, then there should be some timeline. But it would depends on the countries. It really varies. It could be from January to October, and it depends on your specific country. You have to go through the USA embassy of your country to get more information of that kind of scholarship. However, if you are considering the R-ship or T-ship pathway, there isn't any more specific timeline. You have to prepare, or you have to take at least 1 year so that you can prepare all of your documentations, your English proficiency certificates as well. And then when you will apply for that, you will have, after completing all of those processing, you may have to wait for 3 months or 6 months to be in the USA. That's why it really matters on program to program variations.
That's really amazing, and I think some lot of new information even for me. Although we have done so many live sessions about Erasmus Munna scholarship previously, and maybe more than two or three live sessions with mixed scholars about Japan, but the information you just highlight, I think there are so many things new, even new for me. I hope so. A lot of our students they are getting new information, and it could be like great beneficial for their to pursue in the future with their or a PA and somehow for scholarships.
Mhm.
Miss Nay, what is next thing came to our mind if we apply for RA either TA? How much usually they offer as a stipend, either what are the benefits of TA and RHIP, and even if you please if you can discuss about some general scholarships, how much they offer the students, and what are the expenses usually, like how much is the accommodations that cost living there, and what are the expenses about like grocery or something other, we can say like some taxes, pension, health insurance, and other things. What are like a general you can give, maybe you can give us a range, something like between these to this, and if you know, please talk
Yeah,
more
yeah.
about it.
Yeah, honestly, it really depends on states. For example, if you are considering Ohio State, you'll get a salary range, right? But if you're considering California, for example, the living cost is very high there. So you'll get higher salary or stipend,
Mhm.
but you will not have that much money in your hand at the end of your month, right? So it's the way, as it's very specific task as a TA and RA, and the salary is also not that much good. It could be around $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000, for example, to be maximum. But more specific point is which state you are interested in to start your higher study. So considering the state tax more specifically, it those really matter. To be more specific, if you are getting $2,000, for example, after or excluding the tax, it could be state tax or county tax or different tax. I had three or four types of tax in my payrolls, right? So after getting all of those payment, and then you are getting a specific stipend per month. If you are renting an apartment here in Ohio, for example, you have to spend around, for one bed apartment, you have to spend more than $1,000. So having $2,000, you have to spend $1,000 for your apartment. If you are sharing your room or apartment with friends, then it's a different scenario. Then the cost, foods, and the transportation, those really matters. For example, if you are interested to use Uber instead of purchasing a car, it would be really a bad idea. But for the first few months or first year, it's really good. But if you have a driving license, if you have that kind of experience, you can consider purchasing a used car at least. It would really help you to save some money. And for foods, it really depends on your specific diet.
That's cool. And thank you so much. I think you just explained each and everything very briefly and an overview. Each and every students maybe they can get an idea how to manage those expenses and how much they should expect from the professors when they are applying for some positions. You just mentioned the expenses really varied from state to state, and I have really interesting questions. What are the states that we should target? Does it vary with our educational background? Let's say I am currently studying in in the medical field, and you are studying about plant sciences, and someone else who is studying about social sciences and maybe in the management field, other things, and maybe engineering. What could
Mhm.
be different? Do we need to highlight our states? Like I am considering these two, three states. Either it is overall, it is just like everyone should consider these states due to low expense. Either there are we need to consider the universities with a high ranking according to our profile. What you usually recommend?
Yeah, it's really interesting question. Many times I got this kind of questions from many people. However, if you are really interested to learn your specific subject, you should really focus on your laboratory where you are going to, or your professor's profile. And then you should consider the university ranking. For example, if you have to consider two university, you are getting it could be like 1000 ranked QS ranking and another one 500 ranking. However, you are getting more better research facility based on your research interest in the 1000 ranked QS ranked university. You should go there. Why I'm telling that? The PhD journey, it's really sometimes very hard or challenging. So if you have a very good environment, lab facility, a good professor, you don't have to struggle that much. Let me tell you a good example. If you're considering a professor that has a very well aligned research experience or research interest, same as you, then you don't have to establish your research interest from the initial point. In that way, you'd know what professor is looking for or what are the interests he have or she have. And in that way, you can also boost your PhD work or research simultaneously. To consider the state, I don't think so having consideration during this PhD program or master's program. First of all, as we are a student till now, graduate student, we are doing 20 hours per week work, not a full time, like 40 hours per week. As we are student, we will get a half salary almost. Our ultimate goal should be having a good degree with publications or whatever we are trying to achieve. We should focus on that instead of considering tax or some other things or state variations, rankings. But I always recommend to focus on or consider the professors, lab, and the program dynamics. More specifically, if you are really interested to go in a state university where you don't have to pay tax, you could consider Texas, for example. Texas don't have state tax, so you really consider that one if you have that funding, right? So if you have Texas A&M University funding or then some other universities, then you can consider that one if you're really interested to ignore the taxation part.
Okay, that's really cool. Very wholesome overview. Why we should choose which state and what are the criteria we should decide based upon. The next thing, once we decide we are going for this university, the other thing is to go there and to obviously live a life and spend maybe 3 years, 4 years, and some or maybe 5 years. Please first, can you specify what are the usually duration for the degrees they offer during master and PhD, and what is the uh, like duration they offer for RA, either TA for somehow like maybe someone is applying for postdoc position after completing his her PhD. What is
Yeah.
the duration usually they offer us?
Well, for graduate study, it could be master's or PhD. For master's, 2 years in general, and for PhD, it could be 4 to 6 or 5 years. But it really depends on the programs and it varies program to program. You have to do the homework first before applying, or you can also contact to the graduate associate of the specific program or graduate coordinator. I'm sorry, it would be graduate coordinator of that specific program. So you could send email to him or her to know more about the program. For example, let me tell you what's the importance, why it's really matter to contact graduate coordinator before applying in a program. My personal experience, and it saved 2 years for me. While I tried to contact to the graduate coordinator to understand the program, as I completed my master's from University of Borishal, Bangladesh, I genuinely didn't spend my more valuable 2 years extra time to do another master's in the USA. I tried to understand the whole program, and they mentioned they have two program, more specific program. One was direct program, and another one was regular program. So if you have a bachelor in your country and you are interested to do masters in USA, then you could consider the direct program. Then you may need 5 years to complete the whole thing from master's to PhD. You could also get your master's certificate or master's degree right after 2 years. Then you could extend your PhD, and it may take around 5 years. But for my case, as I wasn't interested to do another master's just to save my time, I would say, I tried to consider the regular pathway, and it took around, it may take around like 3 years or 3.5 year to complete the PhD program. So as I'm not getting master's degree, however, I am be able to complete my PhD within a very short time. But it really depends on the preference of a specific student's condition. Sometimes we really want to stay for the long time so that we can apply for green card, for example, or we can get funding for the long time. I saw many people here in with that kind of mindset, but my focus was having my PhD completion, then I could consider postdoc or industrial job opportunities. So it's all really matters with the job market, right? If I complete my degree faster, I could really compete in the job market faster as well. So that's my perspective, but it really matters person to person.
Okay, that's great. I think we have already summed up each and everything. What is the process? How are the things we should consider while applying? I want, before we go to check the comments, that we have some questions. I want to ask one question. Maybe you can just briefly overview our discussion till now. I want to just ask you, what are the most important things that really matter if we are applying for our RA, either TA ship in USA? And what are the things that matter the most in your cases and maybe your experience with other students? Please highlight.
At the time, I was an undergraduate student, so my responsibility was to study well, having a good CGPA. So that is the most important thing you should really focus on if you're really interested to apply for higher study right after 2 years or 3 years. Start early and think about maintaining the consistency in your GPA in each semester or in each year. That's way you will get a cumulative GPA that will be really helpful to stand out from the crowd. Sometimes we really don't focus on the GPA part or CGPA part. We do more extracurricular activities or some other organizational works, but that matters, but not that much. You should focus on the GPA or CGPA first, because that's our main responsibility. And the whole number, 3.85, for example, out of 4, it is showing you are trying to maintain a consistency in your result, or you are responsible to do what you are assigned to do. So I'd focus on more on GPA or CGPA.
That's cool, and I'm really little bit surprised because usually we hear from other scholarships, even in the Japan. I recommend the students, if you have meeting the eligibility criteria, it is quite enough. You could be like somehow same someone with a very high CGPA, and you both could be like in the same line when your application is considering your other perspective. how you did in your research and your previous results and something like this, and your also other activities you participating in a conference or something. But I'm really surprised if CGPA does really matter if you are applying for USA. So, Mr. Naeem,
let, let
uh,
me
yeah,
let me
yeah,
tell you the
please.
extension with that. As you were asking for the most important matter, that's why I mentioned the CGP or GPA. For example, if in my university back in Bangladesh I don't have lab facility, or I'm an undergraduate student, I don't have the scope to do research or to contribute in research. That's why if I have the undergraduate a well CGPA, I can organize my SOP or statement of purpose in a way that I was really consistent to do my work, my responsibilities. I don't have these facilities, but if I get this one, I would do this and this. But if you are interested to apply for PhD and you have a well or average CGPA, you should the second most important matter should be the research experience.
So, Ms. Naeem, does there is some basic eligibility criteria like in Japan? It is usually considered you should get at least 80% grades in your previous degrees based on your CGPA, either your marks percentage. Is there any baseline criteria when we are applying for USA?
Yeah, it also depends on the program. So you have to do the homework first if you're interested to apply, because some programs could tell you that you should have 3.4 or 3.2, but it really matters. So that's why I always encourage the applicants to contact the graduate coordinator to understand the more specific things that should that you should fulfill to apply for that program. So it really matters to apply for a program as well as contacting the graduate coordinator. And I would say if you have like for scale, if you have 3.3 or 4, it's really a good score to start with. But even I saw many students who have got full funding with CGPA 2.5. But the matter is, in the USA, they are not considering the more one specific criteria. For example, CGPA. They are giving weight for each element. It could be CGPA, it could be research experience, conference participations, publications. So all of those have a separate weight, and then ultimately you will get a final weight based on your overall profile. So if you have lower CGPA, you can also work on your research experience, extracurricular activities, or if you have the scope to publish research works, those all will help you to overcome your lower CGPA.
That's great, and I think this is a very important point. If you some student those don't have really good CGPA, they should focus on other project-based work or research work and something like participating in a conference and contributing something to the scientific societies. Uh, I think we have discussed till now each and everything about the application process, what are the requirements, and what is the usually application method, and what are the questions that usually students stuck with. The next thing could be very interesting once we move to USA and the lifestyles there. We already discussed about the expenses and what are the stuff, how much they can pay us, and what are the expenses, what are the benefits, each and everything. The next thing I want to know, because once we are considering USA, each and we almost everyone we are thinking of getting a peership, a green card, something like a nationality. So if you would like to tell us something about how long does it take if we are applying as a student and we go as a student, and how many years they usually ask us to stay in USA, and what are the other requirements we need to meet, and how does it start for the nationality? Does first they give us a peership, the next what is the next first is maybe the green card, other is the peership, and the other is something like getting a nationality and US passport. So please can you give us an overview?
Yeah, so I am really going through that process right now. I have applied for green card about 6 months ago, and I got
That's
the
good.
approval for I-140, for more specifically, that is EB2 NIW. So it's National Interest Waiver Program. So what we are doing, if we have the ability to show the importance of that work for the United States of America, then we are eligible to apply for the NIW program or the green card pathway. It could be EB1 or EB2. More specifically, I applied for EB2 NIW. The timeline, it really depends. All of those answers, uh, it could be starts with it depends. Why? Because I personally saw many people here, they are applying with the help of attorney. They're spending thousands of dollars. It could be more than $8,000, and they are still waiting. Even it's more than 2 years, they are still waiting. But for my case, it's really different. I try to understand the whole thing, the EB2NIW green card pathway. That's why I applied by myself. It was a self petition, and the whole process took some time for me, as I'm working here as a 20-hour per week. I really had some time to do some homework on it. That's why I always try to do some study to understand the whole thing and try to write the petition, not like an attorney, but I try to write based on my experience that I got from online. And then many other things are required to show the evidence that you are really capable, even you are in a position that you are doing good work based on your experience for the United States and your future endeavor. It's also showing some kind of trajectory that yes, you are in point A now and you are doing so many works that could lead you to point B. That's why they are really interested to give you green card. So the timeline, it matters. Even the money or how much you have to spend, it also matters. Some attorney could charge around $8,000 or some other could charge $14,000. It really depends. So after coming to the USA, you shouldn't really be worried about the green card. Why I'm telling that? First of all, you have to do some work here for what you are in a program, right? Based on my personal experience, I started my program in 2024. Right after entering into the program, I had several meetings with my professors. I immediately thought about publishing papers. So as I don't have original data, that's why I tried to publish review articles. At least I wanted to have my name with my professor online. And that was really helpful for me. Then I got a very good flow to move on. Then when I had the original data, then I published 3 original articles within that time. Those were the most important matters that had a great impact on the green card application for me. Even as I mentioned earlier, I tried to get recommendation letters from Asia, then Australia, and USA. So I tried to consider different countries. I got recommendation letters from my country, Bangladesh, then Malaysia, Japan, Australia. So and USA. More specifically, having a good connection with your professors or the courses you are taking, the professors from that courses, you should have a very good connection with them as well. And those really worked for me, having good recommendation letters. Some other perspective could be having a good uh, pathway, like you are doing this in your undergraduate program, then you are doing now in your master's this work, and you have a good connection with that, and now you're doing PhD. you also have a good connection. You are capable of connecting all of those things. So they're thinking that yes, you are doing your work and you are really consistent. As you know, consistency really matters in that case. After all of those things, having the legal documentations really matters. Having uh, good like background, no offensive work, those are also important matter for the green card pathway. Overall, I don't recommend you to think about green card first. You have to do your job here in your masters or or PhD. So why I wanted to emphasize on the CGPA, let me tell you. In my PhD program, while I was doing good or great, alhamdulillah, in my programs or courses, then I had a good CGPA, alhamdulillah. That's why that was also a very good way I tried to connect all of those evidence with my petition letter for the EB2 and IW. So first of all, come to the USA, focus on your study, have a good CGPA, do some publications, manage some recommendation letters, then you are good to go or move on to apply for green card. But the most important thing, you have to be financially stable. If you don't have time or you are not capable to do your research to make a good petition, then you shouldn't invest by yourself like yes, I will do it. But if you have well researched mentality, then you can try by yourself. But always it really matters how you were going through this process.
Okay. That's great, but it's not. I hope so. It's not really confusing for someone who is there, and I personally really send my best wishes for your application and many congratulations. You are already doing well since you mentioned you published 3 papers with your data from the USA and some review papers. I have highlighted the LinkedIn and other profiles of Mr. Naeem. Please, if someone is interested to look for his work and what he has mentioned, if you are in the field somehow relevant to his research, or please go and check out, and maybe it could be somehow helpful for you guys.
Mhm.
Uh, Mr. Naim, thank you so much for explaining very, how to say, I can't say thanks to you because you literally, I would say, summarize the whole process in almost, we are talking about 1 hour. There's few general questions now I want to ask before I would like to go through the comments because I think we didn't check the comments. So first comments is someone with a bachelor degree and 8 bands, and what are the chances of getting Ohio State University and prices for university? So I would like to brief this question in a few subparts. First thing, can you please talk about your university specifically? What are the programs they usually offer? What are the departments, and what are the departments that your university is known for the most in the world? And the other thing, what are the scholarship programs they usually offer? Is there something like a state scholarship, a national scholarship, maybe a university specific scholarship? Other is it just you are getting a RA or TA only? And maybe I will try to mention the portal of Ohio State University in the discussion. And also, I think you can go and visit if you just write the name of university. So please.
Yeah, uh, congratulations for your bachelor completion and having a good score in your IELTS 8. It's really a very good score to apply for the Ohio State University. Let's talk about the application fee for the Ohio State University. As it's a well-ranked university, the application fee is a little bit higher and it's around $85 as I could remember. It may change or vary. But when I applied, it was $85 non-refundable application fee. That's why I always encourage the students, they should really do some study before applying in a program. Some university could charge you around $30, some could $50, some could more than $100. So you have to do the whole calculation first, and you have to connect that with your financial stability, and then think about it. It's really non-refundable. It's like you are trying how what's in your luck. So it's non-refundable. Think about it first and then apply. Having application to more than 5 or 6 universities for you, including the Ohio State University, would be really a good chance to get TShip or RShip. More specifically, the Ohio State University is really famous for medical section, medical research, and the Ohio State University was started with the agricultural university or college or something like that. Even the agricultural program at the Ohio State University is very famous in the USA or globally. We have the more specifically, I could do some promotion for my research center here, the Carbon Sequestration and Management Lal Carbon Center. More specifically, we could say Lal Carbon Center. Dr. Raton Lal has established this center, and we are doing research on soil carbon, soil physics. So it's one of the most strongest research program in soil science in the USA or in the global perspective. Even Dr. Ratonlal, he is one of the most renowned professor in soil science, or I could say number one in the world. So if you're interested to study soil science, you could really apply centrally, or you could also send email. There are so many other professors of soil science as well here, but the funding opportunity in the US is not that much good right now. So if you are really and highly interested in the studying purpose in the USA, then you should consider the central application. It may give you some kind of flexibility. You could get tiership, or you could also get RShip as well. So you have to really invest on applying for 5 university or 3 university based on your financial condition, and you can try your luck. Good luck.
Thank you so much, and I'm really happy to hear about your university, and they are doing well in the medical field. I'm because since I'm from the medical background, of that that's something like really good for me to know. And I have heard a lot already about your university, Ohio State University. Although, okay, so I think we have almost covered each and every perspective, but still I have some very general question. The students usually ask me while applying. The first thing they usually ask, if we get selected, we move to a USA on a student visa. Either it goes with RATA and MS Masters, either for a PhD. Do they allow to do other part-time work, and how it goes?
Yeah, that's the most alarming question in this session. Why?
Please,
Yeah,
if you're
because if you are entering the United States of America as a student, more specifically under F1 visa or F2 as your dependent. For example, I am under F1, my wife, my daughter, they are under F2 visa. So they are not allowed to work legally in the USA as a F2, even though I am also not allowed to do extra work outside of this campus. For example, to be more specific, I work here as 20 hour per week. So only 4 hours, or yeah, 4 hours. 4 hours per day. I'm not a full-time staff here, right? So I'm doing only 4 hours per day. I have much time throughout the 24 hours. So I am investing that time for doing my homework, coursework, research work, right? So improving my skills and all of those things. So we are not allowed to do outside work if you are F1 visa holder, for example. It's really alarming. And in most cases, based on my conversation with many students, more specifically from Bangladesh, while we start our conversation with the huge opportunity in the USA, they are showing a very excited expression to know about that. But right after, when I start with the barrier, for example, you are not allowed to work here without like working in your campus as a F1 20 hours per week, they immediately change their direction. They consider, oh, Australia or Europe or Japan. Yeah, so it really matters to do some homework before moving from your country, because here we don't have so many relatives. Your parents or your wives, they could be in your country and you are here alone. You could get some community support. For example, you could talk to the students from your Pakistan community or your Asian community, but that wouldn't be helpful. That's why you have to do the homework first. Another thing I'd like to mention, because I'm not sure whether it would be covered in this session or not, that is health insurance. In the USA, the health insurance cost, the health cost or health service, it's really very high. If you go for a very simple test, you will get around like $1,000 in your My Chart. It's a website where you will get the bill and you have to pay. So if you don't have the health insurance, I know there are some perspective from different ideology about insurance, but if you're in the USA, you should really have to think about that before applying in a university. Be sure that you have the health insurance, because if your health cost is not covered by the USA universities, you wouldn't be able to survive here. If you have the insurance, then you are good to go. Well, if you have a very uh, moderate to well salary or stipends, then you are really in a good condition to live here. But always focus on full health insurance, because having, for example, for my case, I had 100% premium health insurance. That's why I still don't have to think about twice before going to medical. So
Yes.
always focus on that.
Yeah, that's really important. How I think it's really different from living in Pakistan or Bangladesh and India, maybe any other country. And it's also very different even for Japan. If we are living in Japan, the health insurance network, it works very differently as if we compare with USA has the insurance system. So the other question I usually get from the students, like any of the country when they are applying, they ask me, can we go with our spouse, with our husband, the wife, when we are applying? Is it allow? And do they allow to go at that time when they join the program? Either the university usually say first students should come there, and then you can invite your spouse.
Yeah, it's really a good question. Having spouse with a student, it's really a very good feeling when you are outside of your country. Based on my experience, while try to understand the whole thing for next scholarship or Japan and then Erasmus scholarship, I learned that we are not allowed to get our spouse with in the same day we are flying to that country. So it's really frustrating for those who are married in that case. But for the United States of America, you have that opportunity. You can fly in the very first day with your spouse. You can land here and you can stay together. But one barrier or one drawback, as I mentioned, she or he wouldn't be able to do work. It's illegal for him or her. So we have both the benefit or the drawback. We have to do the whole calculation first before moving to the United States of America.
Yeah, I think so. It goes side by side. We have to compare each and every aspect of life and how it will go for any of the country you are applying. So
Mhm.
I think personally I have discussed most of the things until I hear from the students when they ask me about the US. Now, Mr. Naim, I would like to ask you, please, if you want to talk about some points, maybe you usually hear from the students, the questions you hear from the students, and we have not discussed until during this session. I would be very happy if you can please talk about those points.
Yeah, again, I would like to start with having research experience. While you are doing your undergraduate program, please do more emphasis on having some research experience. Having a well CGPA is good, but if you have the research experience, it would help you to do the competition more strongly, right? Another important matter, having some extracurricular activities, or if you have the scope to get some conference participation. Sometimes we hear different news about conferences. It could be local conference or it could be international conference in your country, for example, in Pakistan. But we are not showing interest to do participate in that conference due to having some registration fee. Please don't do that. Try to invest some money on participating in some conferences. It would give you some experience, some international exposures, and it would also be very helpful to improve your communication skill. You would also get a good connection, even though you can also get recommendation letters, for example, after 2 years. Who knows? That's why always focus on that. Another important part I would like to cover at the end of this session, that is having some technical experience. If you are from soil science, you should have some technical experience to do your lab work or statistical analysis or doing some graphical figure making perspective using Adobe Photoshop or Canva, for example. Do have some technical skill. And most importantly, let me tell you my experience. While I was in undergraduate program, I was in Borishal city. It's a coastal part of my country, and my capital is Dhaka. There were several workshops I participated in from Borishal to Dhaka, and I had the night journey, about 6 or 7 hours journey. I went to Dhaka. I participated in those workshops. Even the longest workshops was for 2 days. I stayed there. I invested my time, money to get experience, and most importantly, the certificates. Even having those certificates would also give you some kind of extra weight for your overall profile evaluation. I always try to encourage you to participate in those kind of things, even having some social work or organizational or extracurricular activities. It would also show you some kind of leadership experience or societal benefit based work or your initiatives. So having some roles, for example, in my CV, while I started my undergraduate program, I tried to write my CV, and it was around 2 pages. And I always try to add more lines in my CV gradually. That's why I participated in conferences in Thailand in 2019. And in the same year, I also participated in Indonesia just to have some lines in my CV so that it may have some international environmental vibe. That's why it's really important to do these works and always try to understand the whole profile evaluation perspective. It's not a very specific property, it would be a holistic approach. You should have a better CGPA, a good amount of research experience or teaching experience, having some extracurricular activities, having some awards, or having publications. All of those things would be considered to evaluate your profile holistically. So that's all just to share with you at the end of the session.
Okay, thank you so much once again to sum up all the aspects. I have one last question before we sum up this session. Uh, Somehow we are very reluctant to applying in the US because we consider somehow with our thought process work like that. It is very hard to go to USA. for, especially if I'm talking about my country, students from my country, they we usually consider it as like very very hard if we are applying for USA. So we usually prefer some other country, going to Europe, other European countries, or something like, okay, maybe it is little less competitive and not that much challenging. What is your one advice if for the someone who is not applying to USA?
Yeah, it's one of the very important question in this session. So try to understand it. If you are not in the competition, how you'd know you'll win or lose, right? So you have to understand in your competition. For example, in the United States of America, there is a program, and five students are applying centrally, and they have the financial stability to invest $100, for example, with non-refundable condition. So the people who were not interested to invest that money, even though they had that money, but they were thinking, no, I don't want to spend that money just in case I don't win. So it's not a very good approach. I always recommend having a good financial stability. If you don't have now, if you have time, for example, if you are in your undergraduate program and you are planning to apply for higher study after 3 years, then you should start now. You could do some other extra works or part-time jobs or tuition or whatever you would be able to do to earn some money, to secure some money so that you can invest that money for your higher study application purpose. So I always recommend you should try. I tried for mixed scholarship. More specifically, I tried for the university recommended mixed scholarship. I had three professors in 2 or 3 years. They were really interested to get me in their lab, but ultimately the competition was very high. Maybe I was I completed my undergraduate at that time, and the competitor who is by my side, he may be a lecturer, for example, or in a faculty position. So they will always get a higher weight than me as a very fresh graduate student. That's why I wasn't able to win that mixed scholarship, specifically university recommended scholarship. But I tried to invest my financial approach, and that's why I applied for several 3 to 4 universities in the USA. Although I sent emails to thousands of professors to get funding, and I got very few responses from them. Maximums were no funding, or negative, or no response, or some had some interview approaches as well. For example, I had one interview, so that was based on soil chemistry in the USA. So as I worked on soil physics, like water holding capacity in soil, so it's like more soil physics, less soil chemistry, and I didn't have soil nitrogen experience in my research experience. That's why I wasn't to be selected for that, but I was shortlisted. So always you have to send email to professors. If you don't get response from them, then the investment condition would come here. You should apply. At least if you can apply for several universities based on the university ranking, you could consider low ranked universities, mid rank, or high rank based on your CGPA. If you have good CGPA, good IELTS score, or English proficiency score, if you have research experience. So all of those conditions should be considered before selecting the universities that you are interested in for different programs. So that's
That,
all.
thank you so much. I'm really happy to have you today. Last comment I would like to say, summarizing today's session, please, if you want to apply to USA, go take first step, invest very wisely your time and money both. And it is very important to initiate for any of the bigger thing coming next day. Thank you so much, Mr. Naim. If you want to say anything, the this forum is open for you any other day. I would be very happy if we have you once again any other day. So please, if you wanna make any last comment for our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adnan Haider Bhai, for having me in your podcast. I'm really honored to be here. And the audiences who are listening or will listen later on, I always say best wishes for your future higher study abroad journey. Try to be more focused, do some study, homework, and always try to maintain a holistic profile so that you can compete with all of those applicants under a specific program. Best wishes for all of you and good luck.
Thank you so much. So I want to just mention this is my first ever interview, a live session. I'm speaking in English. I hope so I don't have make so many mistakes. So please, if you report something like I have made a mistake, so ignore this time. I will try to improve it better. Mr. Naim, once again, very thank you so much. I'm going to end this session. Hopefully, we see you next time again. Thank you so much.